midfield. Leeds Rhinos have defended their crown.
What a moment for Halifax Rugby League.
Austin is through and Warrington dominating. Great try for the Robins. Huddersfield Giants take the points home. It missed it! It's a poor lad. That is one sensational try.
Look out with a drop goal. Leeds gather round in jubilation.
It's hit the post. It's Wellesby. Wellesby might have got the try. St Helens are champions once again.
Six games, 61,000 fans, 2 matches that went to the Golden Point. It was definitely a magic weekend. I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by Eddie Hemmings. Eddie, thanks for coming in.
Always a pleasure, Mark, you know that.
And we've got a very special guest. The first time they've been on TV together since 2016. It's Steve-O. Steve-O, how you doing?
I'm well. I've noticed Eddie has dyed his hair.
Nothing changes. 5 years, that's the same line of 5 years ago, for goodness sake.
Well, they're the good ones.
Well, I'm hoping not to say much in the next half hour. I'm going to leave it to you two quite a lot. But let's just start with you, Steve-O. That was a tonic Rugby League needed, wasn't it, Magic Weekend?
It certainly was. It's, I mean, to have 2 games in the same day that goes to the Golden Point is something that we've always sort of tried to get, especially to cross to the viewers, is that Rugby League, in my opinion, is the greatest game of all. But we've got to work hard to make sure that we can replicate what we did on the Magic Weekend. Maybe we've got to have more Magic Weekends. Maybe we do it twice in the season, start of the year and then finish off at the end of the year. Either way, we've got to come up with something.
Yeah, he's always coming up with little innovative ideas. I mean, he mentioned the other week on our podcast that thankfully for the viewers isn't like this. We don't see him quite as broad as he is today. But yeah, he came up with this idea that, you know, the 100 in cricket has revolutionised the sport, that Rugby League needs to search for a shortened version of the game. And lo and behold, on the way into the studio this morning, I've heard that Rugby Union are thinking of a 12s competition and revolutionising the game with a short form of Rugby Union, a world event based in England next year. Talks very much at the initial stages, but Steve-O, they're talking about £250 million being injected into Rugby Union. You think that franchise money from somewhere needs to be brought into Rugby League basically to save the game, don't you?
Yeah, we should have done that several years ago. One of the biggest disappointments that I've overcome is that the way that the Rugby Football League allowed Super League to break away. Now, if you have 2 governing bodies, to me, it will not work. You just can't say we want finance for one and yet we've got to have finance for the other. We've tried all sorts of things. We've always tried to bring back in the big companies, but unfortunately, we don't seem to attract them. You've just mentioned Rugby Union, 250 million. Imagine what we could do with 1/10 of that.
Well, that is the case. I mean, the thing is, the Magic Weekend, Mark, will help. You know, he's right. Maybe we should have one in the start of the season. I remember we started the season once upon a time with a Magic Weekend in Cardiff underneath the roof. It was a fantastic way to kick the season off. And why could we not have Magic Weekend 2 at the end? Because we've actually got a bit of jeopardy now in Super League this year. OK, we know the Catalan Dragons are league leaders. We know the Saints are second and Warrington probably third. Will Wigan, Leeds, Castleford, Hull KR, who's going to make it? Wouldn't it be fantastic to have a Magic Weekend in a fortnight's time, Magic Weekend 2, when all that will become clear over the space of 1 weekend with all the matches played on TV? I mean, it gets criticised from time to time. You know, over the last 30 years, I've lost count of the number of people who've had a go at him. But he does come up with a couple of good ideas.
There's nothing wrong with discussing where you think the game should go.
Not at all.
But, like, we're sat here on a positive, though. Let's be honest, you know, COVID. I was lucky enough to go on the Saturday. Obviously, witnessed 2 great matches. Castleford, Salford weren't bad either. The atmosphere was superb. You know, it was 30-odd thousand, 61,000 in total. You were on here 3 weeks ago. What are you saying to Rugby League fans to come out?
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
know, there is still some trepidation amongst some, and you can't blame them.
Well, there is. That's the problem. I mean, we're coming out of this COVID pandemic, and perhaps people have found different things to do rather than watch sport, full stop. I mean, Premier League football is head and shoulders above everything else that takes place in this country. And, they even had 60,000 a full house at the Etihad in Manchester on Saturday for the charity game, So people will come out. The Rugby League and Super League, as Steve rightly says, has got to say, this is a great reason to come out on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whenever the games are played. And gradually people are coming back to the sport, which is great to see. And those two games on Saturday were fantastic. I mean, Catalan Dragons, 4 years ago, Mark, they were 40 minutes away from relegation. Now they're 80 minutes away from the grand final at Old Trafford. What a job Steve McNamara has done in the south of France. And he'll be delighted, because this means once all the COVID restrictions are lifted, the French wine will be flowing in the Stephenson household.
Steve, a word on Steve McNamara and the job he's done.
Yeah, I think he's done a marvellous job down there. When you think about the fact that they've now secured 2 trophies, and I've always said that we should spread the game a lot more than what we have done. There's far too much self-interest in regards to the M62. I was up in Workington the other week, and Workington and Whitehaven, and they asked me to say a few words before the London Whitehaven game. And I just said to them, you should have got together. They hate that. It's only 7 miles that separate them. You look at the amount of wonderful players that have come from Cumbria. They would be able to compete with anybody, not just in this country, but in the world. They've got to forget about it. The Rugby League has to start saying, we can't just be a northern game. And we should help people like London and Sheffield and people that in the south of France. I'm hoping that Toulouse, they get promoted, because it will give a huge boost down south of France. All the schools, all the people, they want to go and see it. Rugby union has taken over. They're trying to just blot us out of the system. And we've got to make sure that we get the schools sorted out, the amateur games sorted out. We've got to give them, but first of all, we've got to get the money. And that's the problem. We don't seem to attract people and the companies that have got the big money. And thank goodness we've got Betfred.
Well, indeed,
I can say
right.
I'd like to think you've got a pretty good headline sponsor.
Absolutely.
I'm a bit biased, obviously.
Well, yes, of course, but I mean, we certainly have. You sponsor everything that is good about Rugby League. You sponsor the wheelchair,
We've
the
just
ladies,
extended our Challenge Cup sponsorship.
Challenge Cup has just been extended, absolutely. And I must say that 10 minutes from the end of the Saints-Catalan game on Saturday, I was thinking, oh my goodness, if this is going to be the grand final, how are we going to sell this out? Because Saints were walking away with it. Then, boom, the biggest comeback I have ever seen in Super League. 3 tries.
30-12 it was.
30-12 down, 3 tries in 5 minutes against previously St Helens defence dominated. And wow, off we went into Golden Point. And I know somebody in the south of England was cheering when Maloney's one-pointer dropped over the top of that crossbar. Am I right?
You're spot on, Eddie. Look, people used to say to me, for goodness sake, stop talking about the 1 point. But you've only got to win by 1 point. It doesn't matter whether you've 10 points, 20 points, 30 points. You've got to just make sure you win. And I think that what Catalan did to the Saints has given St Helens the biggest kick up the backside, and they won't do it again. Because when they were leading, they still tried to play open football. But why do you want to do that when you've got the game in the bag? They try to keep the ball alive, they keep coming up with mistakes. And once they got the first try, they conceded that. Maybe some of the players said, well, that's just a consolation, because we're well in front, we're in control of the game. But when they scored the second try, I know what I'd have been doing. I'd have been putting a handbags throwing competition. You don't have to hit someone, maybe then run the risk of being sent off, but you can grab someone, and before you know it, there's 20-odd players all getting this, that, and the other. There's a few seconds that's going. And not only that, it could have put off Catalans urge to go and keep going for it.
You could also see one or two Catalan players in the sin bin.
Well, for one of the most best defences we've seen all season,
Absolutely.
that was very, very inexperienced, and they call it game management, don't they? The game management was awful by St Helens at the end. So let's just remind ourselves what many people are calling one of the greatest ever games at Magic.
Wormsley and Matty Lees, McIlorum on by Drinkwater, and Tompkins a little step, another step from Tompkins, and Tompkins, magnificent! Roby's pass, Wellesby's pass, Coote, and make it so!
The meters in a match.
Well, here's Percival, and Percival for Coote, and Coote will get a try for the Saints. Restart Hooter signals, and here is Matautia, there is the Saints try. Lewis Dodd, Wellesby's pass gets Matautia away, Matautia looking for a second, and gets it. Dean Fare, Maloney's short ball finds Cassiano, lovely offload, Drinkwater gets the pass away, Busquet, Julien Busquet, all the way! Wingfield plays the ball, driven in towards those posts by Knowles, and Knowles is still on his feet and spinning, and Knowles has got the try! Here is Drinkwater, Gil Dudson. It's going to be a really interesting last couple of weeks. Gudemont gets the pass away, and Fare this time will get the try for the Catalan Dragons. Morg does well, Morg does so well, Archie Morg does really well, and then just tap tackle, gives it to Dudson, and Gil Dudson it is. The try is awarded in the final seconds of the game. Are they going to go for it? Maloney will win it!
For the league leaders' shield, he probably couldn't have done it in a more dramatic way.
Oh, have we won it?
I think so.
Oh, yeah? Oh, well, I didn't know that, but thank you.
I mean, it looked like the game was dead and buried at one point, but you've come back and somehow taken it to golden point and then got the win.
Yeah, it just shows how big, how good this group of boys are. We didn't die and just continue to fight, and that's what I'm proud of the boys for fighting, just fighting.
And there was some drop goal at the end from Jimmy as well.
Oh, I thought it missed. I thought we were going to get ready for another 7-tackle set there, but it went over. So thank you, Jimmy.
And they're such a big physical pack. You boys in the middle have to really work hard today.
Yeah, they made us work very hard today. The body's going to be a bit sore tomorrow or the next couple of days, so it'll be good to get a couple of days rest now.
And you go into the playoffs in great confidence and great form in a few weeks' time. How far can this team go?
It's up to us, I guess. We just keep working hard for each other. I guess we can go all the way, I reckon.
Cassiano, I didn't realise they'd won the League Leaders' Shield, so congratulations to the Catalan Dragons. We mentioned it earlier, a Challenge Cup 3 years ago, and now the League Leaders' Shield. It's just awesome job by Steve McNamara. Right, Lewis asked a question, Steve, how far can they go? Well, they've got a home semi-final. I think they can get to the grand final, can't they?
Yes, they can. It's going to be difficult for them because they've got to make sure that they just calm down. They can't just say, well, that's the end of our season. We've got one trophy. And McNamara is a good enough coach to make sure that they've got to realise that they've just got to get their defence sorted out early in the game. So many missed tackles in that allowed St Helens to take control. But as I said before, this is the best kick up the backside that Saints could have had. It's better to lose something like that rather than when it's win or lose situation, because it can, when it comes to semi-finals, nerves can take into control, but you've got to be professional with it. And I'm sure that Christian Wolf will make sure that they are back with 100% attitude to make sure that they get it there. They had that game won, but even the coach would say to himself, could I have done better? Could we have just put it under the jumper, kept the 3-5 up to 5 strides, and then kick downfield? Keep them turning around. That's what they should have been doing with 10 minutes to go. As I said earlier, it doesn't matter how you win, but there are times when you've got to close the game down. And Christian Wolff and the likes of Roby, his experience, they won't let that happen again.
Yeah, I suppose, we've got very carried away about some of those young players, but there were some young players on the pitch, wasn't there, for Saints?
Oh,
they'll have learnt a hell of a lot about that last 5 minutes.
Absolutely. St Helens have unearthed some star. I mean, we knew about Wellesby from last year's grand final at Hull. Now we know a little bit about Lewis Dodd. He's not very good. Not a bad player, is he? And now we know why Theo Farge is being allowed to go through the exit door at St Helens. He's an outstanding prospect, is Lewis Dodd. And as Steve-O will tell you, that clubs like Saints and Wigan and Leeds, they have a production line of young players that come through all the time, and St Helens do it so well. I mean, Mike Rush used to be head of youth development at St Helens. He's now the chief executive, so it should come as no surprise to anyone that Saints have got a really good local development plan, and it keeps on producing players year after year. The one thing I will say about the Catalan Dragons is that if they fail and they don't get to Old Trafford, they won't be the first. They won't be the first league leaders to go to Old Trafford and lose the grand final. But I think now, Steve-O, that they can actually, in some ways, put their stars in cotton wool for a week or two.
2 games left. Well, I know they've got that home semi-final, don't they?
Oh, yeah, exactly. They've got a semi-final at home. They lose that, they're in a home knockout match anyway. So it's in their own hands. So the likes of Sam Tomkins, and, there is some doubt, obviously, about Sammy Soni-Langi, because he got a hell of a clatter on Saturday. Joel Tomkins as well.
So they've got Huddersfield at home, and then they're away at Wigan.
Huddersfield at home, where they can have the celebration, they lift the league leaders' shield. Then they can just take it easy and concentrate 100%, don't you think, on that first semi-final?
Yeah, it's an option that they've got to look at, but also a lot of the players, they like to have the continuity of just playing well. They will be cock-a-hoop at the fact that they got away with it with a 1 point. The Maloney drop goal, that will be living in their history for years and years and years to come.
And what a way for him, Steve-O, to bounce out of full-time rugby league. I know he's going to the minor competition in France, but Maloney hanging his boots up at Old Trafford with a win. He was brilliant, and he comes off every week battered, bruised, blooded. He's a sensational
I also
player.
think we saw the man of steel in that game. I'll be surprised Sam Tomkins is not man of steel this year.
Well, it could be, couldn't it? It could be Sam Tomkins for another year. It really could.
He's had a great season, but you've also got to look at the fact that Maloney probably had one of his better seasons. He's really turned them around because he can take control, and in doing so, has allowed Tomkins to be more of a runner. Come way out wide or whatever. Tomkins sometimes can be just held back if he has the responsibility of taking charge of how they plan it in attack, in defence, etc. So I think it's, Tomkins will be very close to that man of steel. I agree with you. I think that he's got to be in the running. He's had a tremendous season. And I think I also know why he's had a tremendous season, is the fact that, all right, the World Cup was cancelled, but he didn't know that when he started this season. He knew the coach, he knew what he wanted, and the coach knew what he wanted from Sam Tomkins, and he's produced it. And let's hope that he can continue on that same enthusiasm and skill factor to be selected when we do get the World Cup next year.
Let me put this to both of you. Catalans get to the final. I think a lot of neutrals after that performance at Magic will turn out and want to see the Catalans, whoever they're playing.
I think you're right. I think the Catalan Dragons probably at the moment, and certainly they were on Saturday apparently in Newcastle, they were being roared on by all the neutrals.
Everyone over in the Saints fans.
In the stadium apart from the Saints fans. So they probably would be everyone's second favourite team. They know, as Steve-O has already alluded to, what a boost it would be in the south of France if Catalan Dragons went home as the champions, never mind just league leaders, the champions on the morning of October the 10th. And as I said earlier on, 4 minutes ago, I'm thinking, if Catalan get to the grand final, how on earth are they going to sell Old Trafford out? Now, Steve-O, after that last 4 minutes and that 1 point drop goal, the drama of it,
brilliant.
People should be queuing up for the tickets for Old Trafford.
Yeah,
Should be a sellout now.
I think you're right, but I've always been disappointed at the fact that the grand final is not sold out 2 or 3 months before they play, because it's a great occasion, wonderful stadium, and we've got to make sure that you know, people perhaps encouraged to go. Maybe Super League, RFL, get their heads together and say, let's make it a bit cheaper to go to this year's grand final. Knock a couple of quid off, or bring another child, no extra cost. You know, sometimes it's been difficult in this pandemic. A lot of people have losing their jobs, etc. Shops and restaurants closing down. You know, let's give something to those loyal fans. Let's give them something.
In a word, then, so can the Catalans win it?
No.
Who's going to win it then?
St Helens.
He said St Helens all year.
Yeah, look.
He said St Helens all year. That's typical of him.
That 5 minutes ended up a massive wake-up call for St Helens.
Of course it is, and that's exactly what he said. But that's typical of him. You know, we've been talking Catalan up for the last 10 minutes. Can they win it, Steve-O? No. Typical miserable face on him.
Excuse me. You two gentlemen have been bullying up Catalan, and they've done exceptionally well, and they deserve to win that trophy. But as I said it before, St Helens won't make that same mistake.
They might not get there. They might not get to Old Trafford.
I think Saints will get there.
No, they might not get there.
Right, I was lucky enough to be there on Saturday, so I had a quick half a shandy after that game and sat down and then watched this one. And this one was an absolute cracker as well.
Leeming once more. There is Myler in the line. Reece Martin looking for a way through. Strong. Oh, he's got it. It's very strong. I guess a disappointing season. Sneed with the kick through, and there's the bounce, and there's the try for Danny Houghton. Be regarded as a success, and here comes Sneed with the kick to the corner, and that was dropped, and it's tipped up by Carlos Tuivasa, and Mark Sneed at the double. Really good opportunity here for the Rhinos. Dwyer. Myler, they go to the right now with KRUISE Leeming. Options of Newman. Oh, Newman, that's a brilliant try! Will this result in more? Collar himself goes for the line! Has he managed to get the ball down? Hull are celebrating. They think it's a try. So does Robert Hicks. Here is Briscoe, offloads to Newman. Newman for Leeming! Myler, it's a great ball from Myler for Broadbent, and Broadbent finds a way through! Is this the moment? Is this the moment? 2 minutes to go of Golden Point. KRUISE Leeming! KRUISE Leeming!
What an unbelievable win, what a way to do it in Golden Point.
Yeah, I think we made hard work of that one for ourselves. I mean, we were well off in some areas, but you know, I've got a lot of pride in that team, and they stuck together, and we dug deep there. We've gone through a fair bit this year, and that was it's good to come on the right side of them results, and like I say, we worked hard for that.
It could turn into a really important win as well in terms of the playoff picture and what the rest of your season looks like.
Yeah, well, we labelled it a must-win, and we won, so well, we're really happy with that, and like I say, we put ourselves in a good position there now.
You've got quite a few young players in this squad. As one of the older players, you must be really proud of how the young guys dug in today.
Definitely, they've been outstanding. They were across the board, they were tremendous. Big touchy play from KRUISE at the end to nail that, and a good win.
In terms of the confidence this gives you now to kick on to the end of the season?
Definitely, yeah, we're in a good spot, and we just got to keep building now.
That was a massive win for Leeds, and probably Hull can still qualify for playoffs in theory, but really up against it now. That was a huge win for Leeds.
Massive, absolutely massive win for the Rhinos. You're right, Hull can qualify for the playoffs, but
yes.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I mean, the smart money now is on Hull Kingston Rovers to take East Yorkshire into the playoffs. You notice I didn't say Humberside there because we've had many letters of complaint when you say
anything
Humberside.
can happen. We know the top three. Wigan aren't guaranteed. I think Wigan will stay. So I reckon you're looking at Leeds, Castleford, and Hull KR going for 2 spots.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. And the interesting feature about that game on Saturday was that there were 5 attempted drop goals before we got the KRUISE LEEMING winner. I made a note of them this morning. Sneed missed 2 for Hull, Leeming missed 1, Martin missed 1, and Myler missed 1 for Leeds before Leeming's 88th minute one-pointer that got them home. But the fact that Leeds won will put a huge smile on Steve-O's face.
Yeah.
Because everybody in Rugby League knows, Steve-O, you are a Leeds Rhinos supporter.
Listen, I support Rugby League, irrespective of that. And I know a lot of people sort of get on to me and criticise me, but I say it as I see it. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm disappointed with Hull. They're so up and down. They can't get themselves sorted out. That the forwards can't get it going, and maybe there's a few of the players getting a little bit too old. I think I'll be polite in regards to the black and whites. Maybe a couple should retire, and maybe they should start looking for bringing in a bit more youth, because that is what's happened at Leeds. They've done that, and what made me so pleased was the fact that Brad Dwyer was outstanding. He was the man of the match by a country mile. He controlled everything, his runs from dummy half. And then, of course, it was another hooker that got the 1 point.
Yeah, you'd be delighted about that. You say that some of the Hull players maybe should thinking about hanging up their boots. Eddie Jones on Sky Sports last week, he suggested that if Jake Connor got himself fit, he would fit in nicely to the England Rugby Union setup.
Yeah, and Brian Carney's response was perfect.
A classic line. He said, and because they had a magician on picking Jenna Brooks's handbag or pocket, and he said, well, we've had a magician on the programme today. Now we've got a comedian in Eddie Jones who thinks that Jake Connor needs to get fit for Rugby Union.
Eddie Jones, half his staff are from Rugby League.
Well, and again, John Wilkin made a wonderful point. The Rugby Union is coming and is taking some of our best talent, coaching-wise, out of our game into Rugby Union. Please God they don't take Lee Breers, because he's another one who will be on the the wanted list at the end of this season.
One more question before we move on. Look, we've had an imperfect season with matches off, etc., because of COVID, but we've got some jeopardy now, Steve-O, haven't we? We've got 2 really exciting weeks. I mean, Saturday night, the Catalan Dragons are going to get the League Leaders' Shield, well deserved. But we've got Hull KR versus Castleford. A week after, Leeds versus Hull KR as well. We've got some proper jeopardy now for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the type of the end of the season where we should get some great games, mainly due to the fact that most of the players will not be 100%. It's the same in any sport. When you get down to the quarterfinals or the playoff sort of situation, there are so many players that will be jabbed and be strapped up, this, that, and the other. So it equals itself out. But then it comes down to using your brains. This is when you've got to start understanding how to win a game of rugby league. It's the same with semi-finals, especially when it comes to the Challenge Cup. You don't win a Challenge Cup semi-final by playing outstanding open rugby league. You play tight, take your opportunities, tackle well, make sure that they don't get over that the defence. It's not pretty, but they don't care. It's the one way to make it to the final. Use your brains.
Yeah. And Rovers and Castleford live on Sky Sports on Saturday night at 7:30. We've used the phrase already today, Mark, must win. It is a must-win game for both of them, because Castleford are still in the mix, just about. I'm slightly concerned for Cass, Steve-O, because at the moment, Paul McShane, Greg Eden, Danny Richardson, Gareth O'Brien, all doubtful for the weekend. Liam Watts still out with a second of a 2-match ban. It's time for the likes of Peter Matautia, who stood up at the weekend, and Jordan Turner. That was the makeshift half-back partnership for Castleford. But with a full house, and I'm sure it will be, I'm sure the houseful notices will be up at whatever they call Craven Park these days. I'm sure that will be a crucial factor for the Robins, don't you? I mean, they're mad up there, aren't they? We know that. They are crazy about the rugby league.
Yeah, and I think we've got to give a lot of credit to Tony Smith as well. They were way down the league table last season. And he's recruited well. a lot of people had raised eyebrows and said, oh, why have they signed him? Why have they signed this sort of thing? But it's got them playing as a good team. And you've got to make out, Tony Smith has been a great coach throughout his entire career. He knows how to win games, and it's going to be difficult. But then again, you know, a lot of the players, Daryl Powell, they want to send him off. He'll be going over to Warrington next season, and they couldn't do it at Wembley. Can they do it? I don't think they can, especially when you've just listed a few of the injuries, especially McShane. McShane is one of the biggest cogs in their machine, and I'm afraid they'll miss him. Let's hope he gets back.
So we've just had a magic weekend, 2 rounds, and then it's into the playoffs. The top 6 are in the playoffs, and we know the Catalans will have a home semi-final. We're going to get the League Leaders' Shield this weekend as well. So congratulations to the Catalan Dragons. Right, before we finish with the fellas, I'm going to ask him a few questions about working together. First of all, let's have Try of the Week.
Hello and welcome to the Our League Try of the Week. I'm Dave Woods. Let's have a look at this week's contenders. Try 1 this week comes from the Magic Weekend, Leeds against Hull, and this is terrific from Leeds. Harry Newman with a lovely flick and KRUISE Leeming on the wing to finish in the corner. Let's relish that flick again from Newman and that wonderful score. Try 2, and very much a mercurial, magical moment from Sam Tompkins with a couple of left-footed steps and a weaving to the line for Catalan against St Helens. Try 3, and also from Catalan against St Helens, part of the miracle of St James's Park, the try that gave the Dragons real belief that they could still win this game. Arthur Morg with the break, Gil Dudson of all people in support to gallop in. Try 4, if Tom Johnstone is playing, it's highly likely he's going to get on this list. He seems to be on it so often, and this is very typical of the kind of tries he scores for Wakefield against Huddersfield. Plenty going on away from Magic Weekend this last weekend as well, including in the women's game. This is FRAN Copley with wonderful pace down that left-hand side. Featherstone against Bradford, a 100-yarder for FRAN Copley. Super stuff. And finally, in the Championship, Featherstone against Halifax. And there ain't nothing like a Dane. Dane Chisholm scampering away for another big win for the Rovers. Get voting for your favourite this week.
Try number 5 for me, but get voting. Right, we haven't got long left. A reminder, please vote for the Rob Burrow documentary at the National Television Awards. Voting closes on Thursday. Vote for Rob Burrow's documentary. Am I right in thinking, 1988, you were on Radio 2. Is that the first time you worked together?
Yes, yeah, I gave him a ring. The story was he was sitting, supping a gin and tonic by his pool in Australia, and his wife said, there's a pommy on called Eddie. And I rang him up and I said, I'm coming down for the tour. Do you fancy working with me on the radio? And he decided he would. I think he was unemployed at the time, so he had no option. Anyway, he did that, and we made such an impact for the BBC on the, well, he did, I didn't. He made such an impact on the BBC. When Sky came into being in 1990, we had another kangaroo tour up here that we were doing for BSB. And I saw his ugly mug looking out of the Our League magazine at me. And I thought, oh, he's coming up with a tour. There's some Aussies coming up for the tour. We'll give him a ring and see if he fancies doing the tour with us, because we're really struggling at that stage for someone to sit alongside me in the commentary box. Again, he jumped at the opportunity. He came up for 7 weeks, and dear God, he stayed for 26 years, didn't you? Eh?
I did, yeah. And I can honestly say that I've had more than that one gin and tonic when I had my feet in the pool. But listen, we had a great time. A wonderful man to work with. I enjoyed every single second. And you know the most amazing thing about it? We've only had one argument in 28 years.
That's true. That's true. I watched.
What was that about?
Oh, well, I don't tell you. I watched over the weekend because I knew he was on today with us. I watched the 2016 Grand Final rerun when they had all the stars of Sky Sports doing their tributes to Ewan Murray and David Livingstone off the golf, Ian Botham, David Lloyd from cricket, Jeff Stelling, you know, all the lads after the I had a tear in my eye, I really did. And then they showed all the nonsense we got up to afterwards with the montage of the stuff that we did, the pantomimes we did at Wigan, you know, the birth of the game that we did at Wigan Pier. When he banged the head-to-heads we did at do you know, people used to say to us, well, who writes the scripts for the... Well, he had the germ of the idea. There was never a script. We went, didn't we? We went into the studio, we hadn't a clue what we were doing. In fact, we went into the studio every week on match day and didn't have a clue what we were doing, didn't we?
That's right, yeah. It's Eddie used to say to me when we got the countdown, they'd say 10 seconds to live, and I'd turn to him and I'd say, what we doing? And Eddie would just shake his head. He said, and then they'd roll in and we were doing it live. No, it was a great pleasure, because I always thought that if you have a script, it doesn't look natural, does it?
No.
You know, if you do it off the top of your head, and I did it off the top of my head that much, that's why I'm bald.
I watched the back end of that Grand Final programme. He actually had the honour of walking, because in 1973, you won the Harry Sunderland Award. Have I got the right year?
Yeah, 73 when Dewsbury beat Leeds.
That's right. He won the championship. Yeah. The championship final. Yeah. He won the man of the match himself, the Harry Sunderland Award, and he marched out with the trophy and he presented it to Liam Farrell at the end of that. And of course, we had that wonderful programme about him, Steve-O's grand finale. It was a pleasure. You know, God gave me a gift, and there he is. There he is.
Do you miss it? Do you miss it, Steve-O?
Yeah, I must say that my fond memories is the fact that when an ostrich bit my right ear, that was one of the funniest things I've ever explained, as far as Eddie was concerned. And he laughed that much that when he reversed out of the place where we were doing the broadcast, he just picked up a brand new car and he rammed it into a huge big boulder. I was bleeding out of my right ear, and all he could do was laugh. And he said to the man who was in charge of the safari park, he said, look, on a serious note, don't you think that we should go get a tetanus jab? And the bloke looked at me and he said, I don't know which ostrich it is.
And the ostrich is still alive to tell his tale as well. I'm sure he is. Now, that was a classic. A classic. That opens up our Betfred-sponsored podcast each and every week. And every time...
Where do you get the podcast from? Normal places, etc. You do it every week, you too?
We do it every week. Just look for Eddie and Steve-O, the podcast, you'll find us. Brilliant. And every week we play that clip of when he got his ear bitten off. And I can still see it to this day. I was creased. I was doubled up with laughter. And I said, it's bleeding. He said, of course it's bleeding. The bleeping things just ripped my ear off.
Steve-O, will you come on again?
Yeah, look, anytime. Yeah. I love rugby league. As I keep saying, it's the greatest game of all. But I'd like to put out a plea to people who are supposedly running our game. Let's have a bit of change. Let's get some... Forget about self-interest. Let's sort it out. Other sports are going ahead of us quickly. We've got to make sure we're not left behind. We've got to start thinking now.
Right. Well,
Steve-O has spoken.
We'll get you on again, and then we'll expand on that as well. Steve-O, thanks very much for coming on. Eddie, thanks for coming on. And please vote for the Rob Burrow documentary.
Absolutely.
At the National Television Awards. See you next week. Enjoy the Betfred Super League, the Championship and League One, and the Women's Super League as well. Enjoy the action.